just wanna be part of your symphony. We hold you tight and not let go. Symphony.
Hey guys, and welcome back to New Earth Alchemy, and today we're going to talk about words and sounds and Nada Brahma, which is close to the topic I had in mind, but not quite it. But I just got this new soundboard, and found this song intro that I could do, and I was like, oh my gosh, let's talk about this. So I wanted to start off with saying that in no way is anything I talk about religious, okay? Nothing that I talk about is religious. Everything is just tidbits of information that I've pulled from various resources, which may be books, maybe podcasts, maybe my religious upbringing. But something I get asked a lot is, can you still be a Christian and believe all of this stuff? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Because spirituality and religion are as combined or as not combined as you want them to be, as you choose them to be. You choose your own beliefs. I try to focus on the science as much as possible, and when I get into the woo-woo stuff, I tell you it's woo-woo stuff, so that you have like the full disclosure for the best of my abilities, all right? And honestly, woo-woo stuff isn't one way or another it's just kind of like, okay, we might be a little crazy, but here's what is fun to believe. So I tell you all of that to swing back around and be like, okay, in the Bible it says, in the beginning, God spoke. And that's what created the universe, was God spoke it into existence. I suddenly really want to do an episode on religious breakdowns. Not the breaking down of religion, but like I want to break it down analytically with you. But I'll try to stay focused for today. So we're making discoveries in science, quantum physics, all of that good stuff. Theoretical physics. Sorry, I can word. And that's where we get into the gray zones of things bleeding into one another with science versus religion and spirituality and belief systems, because ultimately a lot of science these days is theoretical science. So it's just theories, it's just ideas, because we haven't figured out exactly how to prove it indefinitely yet. And the funny thing is that we'll prove something and then years later have another development that disproves that. So, I mean, like, honestly, we're better off just remembering that we don't know anything ever. Reality is but an illusion. So, string theory, which some of you may be familiar with, that's what Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory was trying to prove. It says that once you zoom in all the way down to the smallest molecules possible, everything is just a vibrating string, and that vibrating string is vibrating at a certain frequency, therefore sound, essentially. So in the philosophy of yoga, there is this concept called Nada Brahma. The world is sound is the translation to that, and it's an ancient Indian yogic philosophy that presents the idea that the universe and everything in it is a projection of sound vibrations. There's an amazing book that first introduced this concept to me. It's called The World is Sound, Nada Brahma, Music in the Landscape of Consciousness. I am not even going to try to pronounce the name of the author, but I'll link it in the show notes. It was originally written in German, which is why I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name. But if you're interested in theoretical physics and spirituality and how those two things may interconnect and have explanations for life and the existence of it, wonderful book to read. Super good. I have not finished it because it is not available on audiobook, and I struggle sitting and reading things. Okay, so now coming around full circle, I took all of that time to explain all of that foundational stuff to you, to come back to I am going to hit the original topic, so go me. Welcome to the insights of ADHD brain, where it's connected to you, but you're aware that it may not be connected to other people until you come full circle and yeah, it's connected. So if the world is sound and we can use sound as creation for what we want or anything else, then affirmations, speech, language, inner critic, our thoughts, our words. You see where I'm going with this and how powerful of a tool those are? All right, I've spoken about this several times. Ancient texts and monks and the shamans and yada yada, who you name it, has spoken about it 1,000 times. The self-help gurus, everybody. Your words create your reality. Your words are like spells to what you're creating your life to be. So you have to be really self-aware of what you're thinking, which stems from what you believe, because you think in the terms of what you believe, and then you speak in the terms of what you believe and think, and then you act upon what you speak, what you think, what you believe. If you're one of those people who are always saying things like, oh, I'm dumb, oh, I'm stupid, ignore me, don't pay attention to me, you know, all of these things, the thousands of things that we could be saying to ourselves, they are affirmations. They may not be positive affirmations or helpful affirmations, but they are affirmations nonetheless. Even when you are joking, there's a saying that says, there's always a little bit of truth behind every just joking. It's the same thing. Because, we talk about how your brain and your body, even though they're a part of you, they are different than the conscious observer of your thoughts and your actions and all of that. Like, the conscious observer has the ability to control the body and the brain, but the body and the brain can also work without the conscious observer having any input, and they're just running on the programming. So if you're saying these derogatory things towards yourself, then your brain, your programming is going to pick up on it, and they're going to go, oh, okay, so that's what we want. And it's just going to keep doing it and keep doing it until you make a conscious effort to stop it, which is going to be hard because then you have to shut down the programming and reprogram it to something else. Was it the last episode we were talking about our momentum train and how hard it is to stop the train and then turn the train around on the tracks and get it going in the other direction? But that's essentially what you have to do here. So this first step is noticing what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you say it, how you think. Like, if you're saying positive affirmations about yourself, but in a sarcastic tone, then they're not working. It's not working. Maybe it's working a little bit. Maybe that's a good baby step for people who have a really hard time saying good things about themselves. Say it sarcastically. Say it as a joke. But then it will slowly maybe become truth and honest. That actually, now that I think about it, may have been how I got going with all of it. But your subconscious programming is what's in charge of running everything, the computer mechanics that are you and makes you. And you can't get anything by this subconscious programming, okay? Nothing. It misses nothing. It catches every little thing that even you didn't catch. It catches the things that the conscious observer missed. It catches subtle shifts and the in-betweens of not only your thoughts and words and actions, but other people's, and then it incorporates that into its programming. It's super resourceful. Oh, everything we consume. So like media and podcasts and content and books and all of it is going towards this subconscious programming. So step one is to stop the influx of poor programming materials. If you're super anxious and stressed out all the time about the state of the world, perhaps maybe we should lay off the news a little bit. If you're super stressed out and anxious about serial killers and being kidnapped and that kind of stuff, maybe we should avoid the true crime. I know it's interesting. I know that it gets you and it hooks you and you're really into it, but you also have to understand that that is just naturally what our brain is designed to do, is intake information that may be helpful in protecting us later. But perhaps it's enough to know that those things exist and we should be careful of them. Maybe it's too much to completely spend endless hours drenching ourselves in this terror and horror. Because what we give attention to grows, right? It creates momentum within our body, within our minds, within our subconscious programming. And the next thing we know, we're anxious and stressed out about it all of the time, even when we're not consuming the materials. So step 1, manage the intake that you bring into your programming and just be aware. Okay, because that's kind of step 2, but it's also kind of step 1. Just being really hyper aware of everything you think, say, and do, and interact with. The people you interact with, the things that you interact with, everything. So that we can notice these things that are not pushing us towards our goals and put the brakes on them. Like, oh, okay, every time I hang out with this person, this is how it ends up going, and this is how I end up feeling afterwards. Maybe I should create some boundaries around this person. Or, oh, every time I listen to these true crime podcasts, I spend the next 24 hours, like, jumping and afraid of the dark. Maybe I should stop listening to those for a little while. Like, I can hardly even watch TV at all anymore. I stick to animation, mostly anime, which also still gets me sometimes, but it's like a softer blow if it's animated, whereas true, like, live action media, it's too encompassing for me. So I can feel every little bit of trauma that the character's going through, and that in turn is creating secondary trauma within my body, because that's a thing, okay? Secondary trauma is a thing. And I've talked about it with a lot of clients who are like, Savannah, my childhood was wonderful, my upbringing was great, there was absolutely zero traumatic events in my life. Why do I present all of these trauma responses? Well, it's because you witnessed trauma, and witnessing trauma creates secondary trauma. And there's not a person on this planet who has not experienced secondary trauma and seen the type of traumatic things that can happen and do happen to some people. So whether or not it's yours doesn't really matter a whole lot, because your body still took it on, especially if you're particularly compassionate and loving, a kind person, a empath of sorts. Clairsentient is what we call that. Then you're going to be super receptive of these secondary traumas. And sometimes in the navigating and the letting go and the clearing of these traumas, you have to acknowledge the fact that it may not be yours. Okay, you may have picked that up from someone else, something else, and now you've been carrying it around, holding on to it. In which case, once you identify what that came from, a great affirmation would be, that's not mine. I can put that down. That's not mine. I can clear that. I can be free of that. That's not mine. And see, your subconscious programming is picking up the connections, and they're hearing you, and it's going, oh, okay, that's not ours. All right, heard. That's not ours. And it may take a little bit of repeating and affirming and essentially insisting upon the truth of, it's not mine, before it really clears it all and everything clicks back into its natural vibrational state. So finding something like self-love or confidence is going to be similar. You just find an affirmation that helps cancel out, void that specific belief system that's causing the belief that you're not good enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not whatever that's keeping you from self-love and confidence. And again, we've talked before about how you don't want it to be a lie, okay? If you don't think you're pretty, then affirming the affirmation, I am beautiful, is going to cause more resistance and friction within your body than is going to be helpful. So instead, you want to find like stepping stones towards where you want to be. So maybe start with like, I'm not so bad. I'm all right. I'm okay. Something that helped me was realizing that every feature, shape, body shape, like everything that is a characteristic of a human being at some point in history, in some culture, has been the top standard of beauty. Okay, so like I used to have really crooked teeth and didn't smile at all, ever. Covered my mouth when I spoke, when I ate, was so self-conscious about my teeth. And then I realized that, or I found out that in Japan, I don't know if this is still a thing in Japan because, beauty standards change constantly. Okay, constantly. But at the time, I figured this out like 15 years or something ago. People in Japan would spend a lot of money to get their teeth crooked. So, like we're over here spending a lot of money on braces to get our teeth straight, and they're spending a lot of money to make their teeth more crooked because it was seen as childlike. It made them look younger, which meant in their eyes more beautiful. Now, I did eventually end up getting Invisalign, and I straightened my teeth, and I don't have those crooked teeth that I used to have. But it is really important for people to know that I overcame my problems with my teeth and began smiling and began like being able to look past it and not see it as such a big deal anymore, way before I had the opportunity to get them straight. And arguably, the opportunity to get them straight only came about because, law of attraction, I found a way to make it not a big deal in the first place, which then, instead of perpetuating the momentum of self-loathing against my teeth, brought in the ability to, love myself from that standpoint. Because that's how law of attraction works. You get what you're focusing on. So if I was continuously focusing on my teeth are crooked, I'm ugly, I hate it, nobody likes this, I get made fun. I did get made fun of a lot for it. But if I was continuously focusing on all of that, then it was perpetuating it. And it wasn't until well after I let go of how I felt about it and just accepted it and was like, you know what, it's fine. It is what it is. I can't really do a whole lot about it right now. So we're going to figure out how to smile regardless of it and how to make it not as big of a deal and not take up as much time and energy in my mental thoughts and processes and how I interact with my world. And we're going to make it less and we're going to basically drain it of its energy and its momentum until it bottoms out. And then once we get to that low, that bottom point of where it's not an issue anymore, then we can start to build on it what we do want. So all of this is flipping the momentum. And then as the momentum builds, then it becomes effortless to have the universe bring in what you need, what you want, what you desire on the other end to fully and truly, completely be over it and healed. This was a physical example, but we can also go to like a trauma-based example where, fun story you may have heard before if you've been with me for a while, but I haven't talked about it in a long time. I totaled 2 vehicles in one weekend and then spent the next 6 years unable to drive because I would have panic attacks so badly when I got behind the wheels that I would pass out.
Whoa! Wow!
Yeah, it was bad. But it did get better, and the way it got better was through, honestly, just me talking to myself while doing the thing. So I'd be driving down the road, and I'd be like, okay, Savannah, okay, you see all this, you feel all this tension in your face and shoulders and your body. Let's relax that, okay? Just breathe, relax, Good job, you're doing a great job. You're safe, okay? Because I didn't trust myself was the issue. So they're like, okay, you can trust yourself a little bit. It's all right. You're not going to do anything purposefully. And it's like, well, of course not. I'm not going to do anything purposefully. But accidents happen. Yes, and you've experienced the accidents happening. Therefore, you are not the dumb kid you were back then when those accidents happened that didn't fully understand the drastic nature of the driving experience, right? Because ultimately, like, I was 17 when this weekend occurred, and it's not that I didn't take driving seriously, But I definitely wasn't focused enough and aware enough and serious enough. Therefore, mistakes were made. So it's like, so I'm talking to myself and I'm like, well, good job. You've experienced something and you've learned from it. So now you're taking driving much more seriously than you did back then. And being tense like this is only going to cause problems rather than fix problems, okay? So if you're super tense, for example, if I was super tense, my face and my shoulders and everything was just really tense, and a instance occurred where while driving where I needed to be like defensive measures real quick, then that's where an overcorrecting happens, and then that just makes the situation worse. So you have to be relaxed so that you can calmly make the quick decisions and movements that you need to make to avoid an accident rather than make it worse, you know. And so all of that is a drastic oversimplification of how I fixed that and can now drive pretty much no problem. But it just takes a little bit at a time, okay? And just talking to yourself. You want to be talking to yourself all of the time, okay? Because you probably already are talking to yourself already, but most people aren't paying attention to what's being said, what's being thought, what's being, you know, the internal dialogue. You spend every moment with you. Nobody else does. Therefore, the vast majority of words and input that you're taking in come from you. So you want to make sure those are good and positive and helpful and compassionate and loving, because you are what you consume, right? Your own thoughts, your own words, your belief systems, those are things that you are continuously choosing to reconsume. So make sure they're helpful. A really good strategy that helps a lot of people is to give your inner critic a name. So like when you start realizing that you're thinking these negative, bad things about yourself, you're like, okay, Patricia. And you kind of like push it aside and you're like, I didn't ask for your input. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. You're not helping the situation. And then you can reform that inner dialogue. So coming back full circle, the beginning of the song that we introed to said, I want to be part of your symphony. Okay, so if the world is sound and we're all vibrating at a certain frequency, and then we're putting our words and thoughts into this also is sound. Like even your thoughts are a form of sound. It may be a sound that only you can hear, but it's still a sound. Your life and everything you interact with is a beautiful masterpiece of a symphony, and you want to make it as beautiful as possible. So if you got some like off tones in there in the form of unhelpful beliefs and trauma responses and triggers and maybe unhelpful people in your life, toxic people, you want to clip those sounds from your symphony, leaving only the most in aligned with the rhythm, with the beat stuff. You know, you can't have everything in there because then it just sounds like a mosh posh, a chaos. You got to figure out what you vibe with and take out anything that you don't. It's like you're sitting at a soundboard with a DAW system. That's what I record podcasts on, and that's also what you record songs on, is a DAW system. And you're the producer of your life. Always editing your masterpiece into your artwork into something more beautiful than it was 10 minutes ago, because you're refining it. You're editing it, tweaking things until it's just right. But also, don't be a perfectionist. Good enough is good enough. So, with all of that, I hope it was not a ramble. I don't think it was a ramble, but it kind of felt like a ramble at the same time. Let me know what you think. Tell us what your affirmations are. Tell us what you're working on and what your troubles are, and we can help support you. Until next week, namaste.